Thanks everyone that's here today. I also want to point out that Nazar and I shared an interrogator in Iran. We never met until Nazar was freed several years after I was. He wasn't included in the deal that got me out. It took another 3.5, 4 years for Nazar to come home. So it's just a strong indication of how tightly knit this community is, and glad to be here among friends today. I don't have new information to share with you on Austin's case, but what I do have is some perspective. And there's one thing that I know, and really that's that we should not be here today. America can do so much more for Austin Tice and his family. The US government, Congress, law enforcement, the news industry, the press freedom community, all of us share in this responsibility. There have been many efforts, including by my colleagues here at the Press Freedom Center, at the National Press Club, and also at the Washington Post, but it hasn't been enough. The goal is obvious, and so too is the reason that we keep at it. Austin should be here. And in all these years, there's never been an adequate reason provided for why he's not here. I've followed this story closely since Austin was abducted in 2012. At the time, I'd been at the Washington Post's correspondent in Tehran for just a few months. Austin and I filed our stories to the same editor, and the weight of not knowing his whereabouts and his condition loomed over the Post's international staff, especially those of us based in the Middle East. Since that time, so much has happened in my own life, and it often makes me think about all that Austin and his family have been deprived of experience in these past 13 years. I'm proof that stories of journalists taken hostage abroad can be resolved. But doing so requires a singular focus and belief that the life and liberty of individuals matter so much that we'll do whatever it takes to free those unjustly detained and reunite them with their families. For nearly 2 years after Austin was taken, I continued to report for the Washington Post from Tehran. During that time, I got married. But in July of 2014, my wife and I, she's here today, were detained by the Iranian regime. I spent 1.5 years in prison until I was finally released in a negotiated agreement between the US and Iran, the type of deal our government never engaged with on Austin's case with the Syrian regime. When I came home, I was offered as much time as I needed to recover. I got treatment for post-traumatic stress. My wife and I bought our first home. I wrote a book about our experience. We had a child. 2 years after my release, I finally returned to full-time work at the Washington Post as a columnist. One morning on my bus ride to work, I happened to sit down next to a woman who had a Free Austin Tice pin on her backpack. I asked her about it and where she had gotten it. She told me she had been at an event the previous night where they spoke about Austin, and that she was so moved by the story that she wanted other people to know about it too. She asked me why I was interested, and all I could tell her was that I had once been the name on one of those pins. That was 7 years ago, and 6 years after Austin had first been taken. Press freedom issues have been at the heart of the work I've done since returning from my own ordeal. Although the Post has always found ways to elevate awareness around Austin's case, often in close coordination with our friends here at the National Press Club, there are still so many frustrations. While it certainly seems that Austin only really receives mainstream public attention during these grim annual milestones, I want you to know that Austin's name hangs on the walls of the Washington Post and staff members' cubicles, and is regularly discussed by different teams of people working at the Washington Post. People who've never met him, but want to do everything that we can to bring him on. You may not see that everywhere, but we hope that it's felt. That's hope. It's shared humanity. just want to tell one last story. Last December, Austin's parents, his 6 siblings, and many of his nieces and nephews came to Washington for a series of high-level meetings at the White House and the State Department. I had the opportunity to break bread with them at the end of a long day of official visits. They were disappointed by the lack of progress and absence of any discernible plan. But they were anything but dejected. I never met Austin, but I felt like I got to know him through his brothers and sisters, all of whom have a tremendous spirit, wit, and an obvious love for each other. And they also happen to be all very, very tall. This family has been through so much, yet has maintained their good humor and, more importantly, their hope. When the Assad regime in Syria fell, literally the very next day, it suddenly appeared that the US government was, perhaps for the first time, willing to put in real effort in bringing Austin home. More energy and resources were deployed in those few days than had been in more than 12 years since Austin was taken. That's why we're here today. And I really appreciate all of you for joining us. Thank you very much.